What's going on, y'all? Machiavelli Mills TV. So look, I was watching a Roy Jones Jr. interview. The interview was on the YouTube boxing channel KO Artist Sports. And in that interview, Roy Jones revealed that, he saw Errol Spence backstage at a fight one time or at a fight somewhere, and he went to go shake Errol Spence's hand, and Errol said, "No, I'm not shaking your hand. I'm not shaking your hand," right? And everybody is in the comment section. They pissed. Like, how could he do that to the legendary Roy Jones Jr., right? Roy Jones is one of my favorite fighters growing up, right? And they're like, how could he do that? How could he do that, right? And so let me just say this, man. I'm going to provide some context to this. As you all know, I'm a big Errol Spence Jr. fan on this channel. Y'all know that, right? So I've always wanted to hear what legendary fighters had to say about Errol Spence. And so Antonio Tarver and Roy Jones were particularly critical of Errol. I remember when Errol put on a dominant performance against Mikey Garcia. No, Mikey didn't hit the canvas and he did knock Mikey out. But if you know boxing, he beat Mikey from pillar to post every single round, and I know Mikey was pissing blood for weeks. In fact, I feel like Errol Spence sent Mikey Garcia into retirement a little early. I don't think Mikey ever recovered from that beating, right? And so after the fight, a little bit after the fight, they asked Roy, "What do you think about Errol Spence?" And he was really basically saying, I'm paraphrasing, that he really wasn't sold on Errol until he beats a real welterweight, right? He's not sold until he beat a real welterweight. He got to see what Errol looked like against a real welterweight to really give a real analysis or give him some type of... I'm paraphrasing, but he was saying like he really not sold on Errol until he fights a real welterweight, and then he can see what he can do. He can't judge that, and you had people bringing that news to Errol, and Errol watches everything in the first place, right? Errol is a fighter who pays attention to the criticism. That's why when Sugar Ray Leonard picked Mikey Garcia to win, not with no analysis, just because it's Mikey, right? When you saw George Foreman pick Mikey Garcia, Errol took that personally, because he like, hold on. Every time, like, especially I think it was due to the fact, like, man, my people always going against the grain. The black fighters, they picking against me. Against Mikey, he felt the way about that, right? Because fighters have egos. They do. And that's what makes them so great. That's what makes them so dominant, because the ego that they have pushes them to perform well in the ring so that they can shut up the critics and shut up the haters, right? So then he says, when Roy was like, he's getting ready to fight Sean Porter, he said, well, now he's getting ready to fight a real welterweight. Now I can really judge him, right? And so after that performance, I don't know if he gave a critique after that performance. I didn't see it. But I know some years, like a little bit after that, like Roy was still not heaping praise on Errol like that. He was always talking about the holes in Errol's game. And, he was always talking about ways that, things that Errol needs to fix, so on and so forth. Antonio Tarver as well. They were always talking about Errol not being able to make adjustments in the ring, not being able to make adjustments on the fly like a Terrence Crawford, and how... basically they were always dissecting Errol's weaknesses. And Errol took that personally, right? And yeah, I think it was immature not to shake Roy Jones Jr.'s hand. But I also understand like the fighter ego a little bit, like when you feel like a guy is always just talking about your flaws and never really giving you a lot of kudos. And I noticed that the legendary fighters always took a liking to Terrence Crawford. You would hear nothing but praise about Terrence. I rarely heard them talk about anything that Terrence did wrong except being a slow starter, right? Or except liking to having dog in him and liking to engage in close quarters at times for too long. But they always showed him nothing but love and support and embrace, and I think that affected Errol Spence. I think that got to Errol. I think that really struck a chord in him, because he like, listen, I grew up looking up to these dudes. These dudes always just talking about my flaws and my faults. I'm not getting the same type of love that a Terrence Crawford gets. Now, to be fair, Terrence Crawford is a better fighter than Errol. He's much more well-rounded. And even before the fight, even though Errol Spence is my guy, I always said that. I acknowledged basically that Terrence had he had a lot more. He had more in his toolbox than Errol, but I still felt like Errol had enough to win that fight. I still was picking Errol, but I say, yeah, I understand what people are saying when they're saying Terrence can do more. But I also feel like I've seen Errol I've seen him fight different than just coming forward all the time. You know what I'm saying? I've seen him fight different ways, not to the extent of a Terrence Crawford, but I've seen him fight different ways. And when Errol, and I feel like, you know, when you had guys like Antonio Tarver, Antonio, like, man, he can't make no adjustments at all. I never seen him make no adjustments. And, you know, maybe it's because Errol necessarily didn't have to do that against other guys. You know what I'm saying? And against Terrence Crawford, he had to. So you can see, well, yeah, Errol did not make adjustments in the fight against Terrence Crawford, right? So, yeah, you can be some truth to... Well, I've seen Errol fight different ways, not just come forward. So that's why I was mad at Antonio Tarver. Like, I seen that. I seen him fight different ways, right? Because he didn't just come forward against Mikey Garcia. He didn't. He didn't just come forward against Lamont Peterson. You know what I mean? He didn't just do that. So, I said it to say, man, I think Errol took a lot of that personally. You know, when your heroes are not saying that, I don't know about Tarver, I know you looked up to Roy. When those guys are really being really critical of you, you feel it in your spirit, you feel it a different way. The same way Deontay Wilder was coming at Mike Tyson when Mike was always talking about flaws and faults, and he was never really giving him like any type of kudos. Mike was giving guys from across the pond, across the waters, overseas kudos, but not Deontay. And Deontay took that personally, so he began to, he's like, look, this dude don't want to say nothing good about me, I ain't gonna say nothing good about him. Errol never attacked Roy Jones publicly. He attacked Antonio Tarver for basically PED usage and basically that for his son being nowhere near a good fighter, having like, his son only got like 10 fights in like 10 years or something crazy like that. And Errol was talking about, hold on, he talking about me, but your junior, he's not this and he ain't that, and he only got 10 fights in and all this time. What are you talking about me and nitpicking me when you could be nitpicking your son, so on and so forth. So fighters have egos, man, and they take things personally. And I think when Errol was never hearing people say anything good about him, and people was always saying good things about Terrence Crawford, he looked at that like, nah, man, I can't really. He felt pissed off. Like, he felt maybe, I know he felt something internally about that, and he felt like it probably would be fake for him to shake Roy's hand. I feel like he should have shook Roy's hand, though. You know what I'm saying? And I think Errol will make amends with Roy at some point, because Roy has been rather graceful towards Errol after this defeat. He's basically like, you know, he ain't trashing Errol or nothing. You know what I mean? But Errol felt like, man, yo, every time I look up, y'all praising dude and just giving me all this type of criticism, right? And sometimes some fighters are great where you don't give too much criticism, but maybe Errol felt like, hey, everybody could be criticized, but they overly criticizing me. All of the greats did. I mean, you had James Toney basically saying Errol Spence can't even spell fight, right? You had James Toney picking Danny Garcia to beat Errol, right? And he was always calling Errol trash, and he's not a good fighter. He ain't no great fighter. He don't know what a great fighter is. He was always trashing Errol. And Errol probably fell back into a corner like, man, all these dudes don't fuck with me, but they fuck with dude. You know what I'm saying? He took it like, oh, well, you fuck with dude, stay over there. Even though this is a legendary fighter that he looked up to, he like, man, you fuck with dude, stay over there. You know, and I've seen Terrence Crawford do that to people. Nah, I ain't gonna say all the time, but I've seen him tell Steven Jackson stay his ass over there and stay on the other side, basically, because he knew that Steven Jackson, the Texas boy, he rocked with Errol. You know what I mean? But the consensus, the majority of the fighters all picked Terrence Crawford. Yeah, and I think Errol, he felt the way about it, man. And I think, I would say this. It's human for us to take certain stuff personal, especially these fighters with these egos. But me personally, if everybody fucking with the other dude and they only talking about what I can't do, I can't do this, I can't do that, I'm gonna feel away. I'm being real. I'm gonna feel away. Right? Now, I can use that as motivation to get better and to improve certain things, to prove people wrong. And that's maybe what people feel like Errol didn't go where he went wrong or where he didn't go right, basically was trying to add certain tools to his fight game, add certain little wrinkles to his fight game. They felt like he could have just proved them wrong there and still shook Roy's hand. But I see both sides of it. Yeah, you shake the great Roy Jones Jr. hand, for sure, I believe that. But I also feel Errol where it's like, damn, every time I look up, it's always criticism about me. They was on Pro Box TV, Antonio Tarver, and them talking about how they basically just not really giving Errol too many props like that. I've never seen Antonio Tarver give Errol props. Never seen that shit. You know, and some people would say, well, it's warranted. Look what happened in the fight. But I would also say, man, dude cannot be a trash fighter with 3 belts in that welterweight division. I don't care what nobody say. He can't be trash with 3 belts in that division. Especially when that division was the hottest thing smoking at one point. You know, so he couldn't be trash in that division and got 3 belts. You know what I'm saying? Unified twice, I'm sorry. But yeah, man, I was like, damn, Errol, you ain't shake his hand, man. It's gonna look bad, man. And now Roy's revealing that. Because I think it pissed Roy off a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, hold on, this little young dude, he ain't gonna shake my hand. You know, so it's a lot of that too. Because Roy kept that in for a while. But it's ironic Roy waited till after the loss. Not initially after the loss. Not initially. But he revealed that a couple of days after the loss. First, he just gave, like, he was kind of like saying, well, the scar tissue is making Errol bleed quicker than normal. The scar tissue from the car accident, he's bleeding much quicker. His face was red during the second round. After the second round was over with, Errol's face was starting to become red. And so he was kind of trying to give Errol throw him a life raft to cling on to for the damage on his face, so on and so forth, and all of that. But I think Roy revealed that, like, all right, I'm holding this in the pocket. I'm holding this trump card, this draw 4 card in my pocket, just in case. And he dropped that bitch. He dropped the bomb right after Errol's defeat, which is kind of like, people gonna start trying to look at Errol funny. But I want to remind people that we all human, man. Like, dude ain't talking nothing good about me. I'm gonna look at it like, damn, he don't fuck with me at all. And all these greats was just always, they heap praise on Terrence Crawford, and again, rightfully so, because Terrence is a special fighter. But you're gonna feel away when dudes ain't fucking with you at all, and you getting belts, and you got a name in the sport, and you a pound for pound fighter, and nobody is really giving you a lot of praise. It's always just about what you do wrong. You're gonna feel away. Especially when these the dudes in the sports that are revered, that are looked at as a pedestal, that are on some people's Mount Rushmore fighters. Not Antonio Tarver, but Roy Jones. No, Hall of Fame dudes. And you looking like, damn. Like when Terrence went to that Hall of Fame induction and they were showing nothing but love for Terrence, hugging him. Errol felt like he never got that love. It was always people picking against him every single time. The fans was picking against Terrence. But the Hall of Famers loved Terrence, right? It was the opposite for Errol. The fans loved Errol, but the Hall of Famers were not really showing him love. So, you know, like the same way Terrence had animus towards the fans, I think Errol had that same animus towards the Hall of Fame fighters, these legendary fighters who were picking against them, these legendary trainers who felt like they really weren't always, they were always critical of him. And there's nothing wrong with criticism. But I think his problem was that he felt the criticism outweighed the kudos. He probably would have been cool if it was equal, but they were far more critical than giving kudos. And I remember this vividly. I'm not trying to just say I'm not trying to shit on the great Roy Jones Jr., but I know Roy was more critical than giving kudos. He really didn't say a lot of great things about Errol. He didn't say a whole lot of bad, but he said a lot of criticism. Antonio Tarver didn't say shit good about Errol. Shit good, and if he did, it was a backhanded compliment. It was more about how he ain't shit on Crawford. He ain't got shit on Crawford. And Errol felt that and took it personally.